Welcome to your Caucus 2020 overview for House District 38 Democrats. The caucus will be held on March 7th at 1:30 p.m. for check-in time and start of business at 2 p.m. All House District 38 precincts will meet at Heritage High School. Unlike past years, we are all in one space with 2 or 3 precincts assigned to classrooms and caucus leaders assigned to each. Heritage High is a little west of the central part of House District 38, so we look forward to having all participants in one location. It's important to know that you have the following training resources as we prepare for caucus. This overview video, a complete step-by-step walkthrough of caucus in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, in-person training, and then on site your caucus packet is an incredibly detailed walkthrough of the event in real time. 2020 is a unique year for Colorado. It's our first time participating in a Democratic presidential primary on Super Tuesday, which is March 3rd. We will still caucus on March 7th for U.S. Senate, as well as electing delegates for the caucus and assembly process. All non-presidential candidates who make it on the primary ballot will be up for vote on June 30th. This leads us to the November 3rd election for all offices. Colorado Democratic primary timeline looks like this. The presidential primary on March 3rd, which is a ballot like we get for the general election. Our caucuses on March 7th, where we will show our preference for U.S. Senate and elect delegates to County Assembly. The County Assembly on March 29th. Here is where we will determine the candidate for House District 38, as well as Arapahoe County Commissioner for District 1. Then the Congressional and Judicial District Assemblies will be held. These dates have not yet been determined. The State Assembly is on April 18th. This is where, for those candidates who are going through the caucus and assembly process, we will finalize the primary ballot. Then in June, on the state primary, we will vote for all candidates who have made the primary ballot, whether it was through the assembly route or those who qualified for the ballot via signature petition. Here's an overview for the caucus process. This video will just give a highlight for each of these 12 steps and then delve into the caucus math. So the first step on caucus day is to check in and pick up your room packet. We will then call the caucus to order at approximately 2 p.m. Then each precinct will elect a chair and a secretary for that day only to conduct the business of the caucus in their room. We will then pass the buck bag. There are a lot of expenses that go into sponsoring caucus, and we hope that with the support of our folks at caucus, we can help defray some of these costs so we can keep money going into each candidate. Step 5 is where we elect and record our PCPs or precinct committee chairpersons. And now we'll get into step 6 and step 7, where we conduct a straw poll for Senate and then our assembly preference poll. We know what you're thinking. The math is coming and it's going to stress you out. Between this video overview as well as our in-person training, we hope to lessen that burden on you. Our candidates for these walkthroughs are Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Superman. And these are our precinct attendees. So the first thing we need to do is determine viability. In order for a candidate to move forward to final voting, a candidate must be viable, and that means they must have enough support to continue. For this caucus, the viability threshold is 15%. That means that more than 15% of the caucus goers in the precinct must support the candidate. If a candidate has less than 15%, they cannot receive any delegates. So the first step is to conduct a simple straw poll, and that's just a show of hands. And in our case, Wonder Woman gets 4 votes, Aquaman gets 2, and Superman gets 1. From the quick straw poll guide, we can see that a caucus like ours with 7 attendees and less than 2 votes means that that candidate wouldn't be viable. So this gives a chance for people voting for non-viable candidates to switch to another candidate, and also give people to make the case for their candidate. This should be done with respect. We then move on to final voting for the official preference poll. So we conduct our preference poll, and we see that Wonder Woman still has her 4, Aquaman still has his 2, and Superman still has his 1. We then fill in the number in column A, record our total, and enter that total into column B. We do not round. We then divide column A by column B and enter the quotient into column C. So here we see that with 14% of the vote, Superman does not meet the viability threshold and therefore does not move forward. So now we go into our worksheet to award delegates. We move only candidates over that are viable and record their votes. We then write that total in column B. So even though we have 7 caucus attendees, we only have 6 for a total number of votes. We write the delegates of the precinct, which we can find on the cover of our folder, and we divide A by B, then multiply by C. So in this case, you can see that 4 divided by 6 times 4 is 2.66. 2 divided by 6 times 4 is 1.33. So now we get into the breakdown of the math. Each candidate receives delegates based on the whole number to the left of the decimal. So in this case, Wonder Woman gets 2 and Aquaman gets 1. But that only gets us to 3 delegates, so we still have 1 additional delegate to award. So now we only look to the right of the decimal and we award the delegate to the candidate with the highest number. So in this case, 0.66 is higher than 0.33, so the extra delegate is awarded to Wonder Woman and she gets 3 and Aquaman only gets 1. But let's say after the straw poll, after Superman was not viable, his voter decided to realign with Aquaman. Now you can see that our total number of delegates is 7, and it realigns the math a little bit. So in this case, Wonder Woman still gets her 2 delegates and Aquaman gets 1, but this last delegate is awarded a little bit differently. Since 7.74 is higher than 0.28, Aquaman now gets 2 as well as Wonder Woman. But now let's look at a scenario where we have a tie. In this scenario, Wonder Woman still has her 4 votes, but then in the final vote, this gentleman decides to realign with Aquaman, so they're tied 3 and 3. We enter in our count, and in this scenario, to really show you what happens with a tie, our total delegates that we can award is 3. So again, we do the math. 3 divided by 6 times 3 is 1.50, and same for Aquaman. So now when we look to the left of the decimal, each candidate will get their 1. We have that 1 extra to award, and when we look to the right, they're both tied at 0.5. We take out a coin, assign each side a candidate, and flip it. In this case, Wonder Woman wins the tie, so she is awarded 2 delegates, and Aquaman only is awarded 1. So in the very real likelihood that you can have a tie, it is determined by a coin flip. Now let's look at an example that illustrates why we don't round. We have a caucus of 15 people with the vote distribution as follows: 5, 4, 3, 3. We do our math. If we rounded, each candidate would be in the running to receive 1 delegate, and we would go to a tiebreaker since we only have 3 to award. When we look to the left of the decimal, you can see that Wonder Woman gets 1 delegate. When we look to the right, with 0.8, Aquaman gets 1, and then the final delegate is awarded with a flip of the coin. Superman wins the toss and is awarded 1 delegate, and Batman gets none. Now that we've finished our preference poll, it's time to elect and record the delegates that will represent these candidates at County Assembly. Again, this is much more detailed in the training PowerPoint and the packet on site. So we elect those individuals that will go to Assembly on March 29th, and then in step 9, we collect that delegate information so that we have all the information we need to contact those individuals for County Assembly. We then go on to recruit potential election judges. We know now more than ever free and fair elections are really important. So if people would like to serve as an election judge, it is a paid position. Now's the time to get that contact information. Step 11 is where we consider any resolutions that have been brought forth to caucus that would impact the party platform. And then step 12 is where we clean up the room, we collect all of our paperwork, and return that paperwork to the check-in area so it can be counted for our final tally. And now your caucus is complete, and we thank you for your participation. As always, you can find more information and contact information on HD38democrats.com. We look forward to seeing you on March 7th.